And now if you don't know, now you know. Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, you know, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest of the United States, and the president addressed it.
Viewers, today I'm going to talk about three economies which are in free fall, a new viceroy and a new emperor. That is, if you've seen the film Pirates of the Caribbean, then the United States has emerged both as the imperial power, controlling the pirates, as well as the pirates who are stealing this oil. But Viceroy Rubio, that is the new name for Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. Viceroy Rubio is going to be running Venezuela from afar, sitting in the imperial capital, Washington, D.C., and will report directly to the emperor. Usually viceroys stay in colonial capitals. That is, he should actually be staying in Caracas, but he'll now be in D.C. But they have decided that instead of directly governing the country, they will govern it by coercion, like a mafia state, you know, like a mafioso would say, oh, what a pretty boy you have there, or what a pretty child you have there. It would be a pity if that boy or that palace was harmed. You know? So what's going on? What are these three economies? Well, these three economies are Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran. I'm not saying that the US alone has caused their crisis and their free fall. It's partly due to their own economic mismanagement. I'll talk about each one, but it's also due to US sanctions. Now, coming first to Cuba, what's happened with Cuba is that it was highly dependent on Venezuela for oil. It used to get about 90,000 barrels of oil. This has reduced to 35,000 barrels of oil a day in the last few months, and now it's probably going down to zero. This is huge because Cuba was anyway doing very badly. What are the reasons for that? Well, it was largely dependent on tourism, but tourism has fallen from around 4 million tourists a year before COVID to around 2 million after COVID. And these 2 million a year has not increased. Secondly, there have been massive fuel shortages and food shortages, which have led to about 2.75 million people out of a country of, say, around 8.5, 9 million leaving in the last 4 or 5 years. Overall, probably as many Cubans stay outside Cuba as in Cuba, because over the last 70 years, 67 years since the revolution, people have been leaving. There have been shortages and bad periods earlier also. So the earlier bad period was in the mid-90s when the Soviet Union collapsed. It was one of the main funders of Cuba. The economy contracted by about 30%, and there were huge food shortages, etc. But Cuba recovered from that. Another bad period came during COVID, when tourism collapsed, and again, the economy massively contracted. But Cubans have been kept afloat so far by foreign remittances by Cubans who are abroad, and they even provide as not just cash but medicines, etc. But now the situation is really bad. How bad? Let me tell you. Power cuts in Havana can range from 10 to 15 hours a day on average. If you live outside Havana, in the provinces, power cuts can be 20 hours a day. You would receive food rations, you know, rice, beans, etc. earlier. But even earlier, they would last just 10 days, and the rest you would have to get on your own. Now, food rations and your food card, ration card, is worthless. That is, you can't get anything. There's constant shortage. Earlier, you would apply for fuel and get it 3 months later. Oh, sorry, 3 weeks later. And now, even if you apply 3 months in advance, your number is still 5,000 and something to receive the fuel. That means getting fuel is next to impossible. This fuel shortage has led to not picking up of trash. Because of the not picking of trash, it has led to mosquito-borne diseases. Mosquitoes are multiplied, and about a third of the population has suffered from dengue and chikungunya, etc., mosquito-borne diseases. Even the famed healthcare system of Cuba, which has excellent doctors and has worked for most of its history, is now in trouble because Apparently, they're telling even patients who come in to bring their own catheters. They don't have money even for catheters. So healthcare, power, food, all of this is collapsing. And young people are becoming more and more hopeless. The old remember the good days of 60s, 70s, 80s, when the economy progressed and their lives became better. But the young are quite disillusioned. And this is spreading into other areas because people don't have fuel. They've started using wood fire to cook their meals. People are having such severe shortages of even basic necessities, such that grocery stores are empty unless you are in those 1/3 of the Cuban population that receives remittances, and or that 1/3 which can depend upon to some extent foreign tourists. Poor people and especially retired people have really suffered because the pension is $7 a month, and the $7 is just not enough because even getting a tray of 30 eggs costs about $8. So people are suffering, and I'm not saying the country is going to collapse and there's going to be a political overthrow, but the economy is in free fall for sure. And now, with the Americans seizing tankers, not allowing tankers to go from Venezuela to even places like Russia or China, leave alone Cuba, it's likely that Cuba will go into further difficulties. Well, I wish the best for Cuba. By explaining this, I'm not saying that I advocate this, but this is the situation on the ground, and unlikely that Cuba will recover from this blow, because whenever it recovered, it was due to foreign help. Foreign help is not going to be coming now because the US is now in a very aggressive stance. Even the security personnel and medical personnel that Cuba used to provide to Venezuela are going to come to an end, in exchange for which it got the oil. Because as you know, in this US raid, about 32 Cuban guards of Maduro were killed out of the total 80 people or so that died in this raid. The other 50 odd were Venezuelans themselves. So the situation is dire and hardly likely to recover, because neither the power plants, neither the other exports, that is, Cuba used to work on nickel as well, but the nickel plants also need power, which is not available. So the nickel plants are also lying idle. So it's a bad scenario. Coming to our second economy, which is in free fall, it is Venezuela. Venezuela has also been, as you know, suffering for long, as I explained in my earlier videos. About a fourth of the population has migrated out, 8 million refugees, migrants out of a population of around 30 million, 32 million maybe. So Venezuela has another kind of problem, apart from the food shortages and power shortages, again, which can be 10, 12 hours a day. The other problem that Venezuela is having is that due to the oil embargo, they are running out of oil storage capacity. That is because the US had imposed this oil embargo over the last 1 month or so. The Venezuelan state-owned oil company had been filling up oil tankers at sea, which were idle, and also oil tanks on land. But by the end of January, they will run out of space. There will be no more space to store this oil. And since oil was the main source of importing everything from food to goods, Venezuela is going to end up going into free fall by the end of January if they're not able to continue exporting. And there's likely to be little help, if at all, from Russia and China. Russia does not want to anger the United States because it wants a deal in Ukraine. Nor does it have actually the naval power to force open the blockade. China will just move on and start importing more oil from Russia or from Iran, etc. It's not likely to force the issue either. So Venezuela and its current government, which it appears is cooperating with the United States under coercion, of course. That is the current President Rodriguez, appears to be cooperating privately, even though her public might be kind of mixed. Sometimes she gives, in the beginning, she gave anti-American rhetoric, but now she seems to be conciliatory. And Venezuela also is going to have trouble in its healthcare system, in its oil output, in its even its other exports, that is gold, nickel, etc. The other minerals that it exports also require energy and require, the lifting of this current embargo. So let's hope that Venezuela does arrive at a deal with the US before the end of January so that it doesn't go into another free fall. And the third economy, which I've been speaking about in my previous videos quite a bit, is Iran. Iran is also in a kind of free fall, but not as dire as Venezuela or Cuba. But the seriousness can be understood from the fact that yesterday Iran has imposed a complete internet shutdown. That is, there is no internet traffic coming out from Iran, and there is no internet traffic within Iran. That is massive because Iran is a huge country, and for internet traffic to drop so precipitously, it would mean that government has imposed a complete internet blackout because of the protests there. Protests seem to keep increasing. And the reason for protests are many, but one of the main reasons is kind of hyperinflation. As I've explained earlier, 42% inflation just in December, 75 to 80% over the last 1 year, food inflation, and currency falling 56% just in the last 6 months. But in the last couple of days, things have gotten even worse. That is, government has removed subsidies on foreign currency purchases of things such as food items and others. So, for example, cooking gas has tripled in value, eggs have tripled in value in the last 2 or 3 days. And more people are coming out on the streets because they're feeling hopeless. And this time the protests are not just in the big cities like Tehran, but also in the smaller ones. And people speculate, in fact, not just speculation, but human rights organizations saying over 50 people have died and thousands are in jail. It doesn't look like this is going to stop. Most likely, Iran's economy is going to further fall. As I've explained in the previous video, the reason is that to fix the economy requires removing the sanctions that the US has imposed. And to remove those sanctions, the US has taken a hard stance. Israel has pressurized US into taking a hard stance, which is that you will have to completely seize all nuclear enrichment and send out of your country all the nuclear material that you have already enriched. So this is something that not only the president leadership cannot agree to because it's too humiliating. Inspectors can come in any time and inspect any corner of your country and take away anything they want. But even any future leader, as I explained in my previous video, that there is a chance that a Bonapartist strongman may emerge in Iran. Even he may not be able to agree to these conditions. And because of that, sanctions will not be removed. That is, Iran wants to do a deal, but the US is not agreeing to the deal. Possibly Israel is not agreeing to the deal, or the Israel lobby in the US is not agreeing to the deal. That is, Iran is saying, let us symbolically allow some enrichment, even at a lower level within Iran, so that the government can sell this to its public, But US is not even agreeing to that, to provide a face-saving exit to the Iranian government. And since there will be no face-saving, Iran is unwilling to completely surrender, because that will completely end the government's legitimacy anyway, after the blow that it suffered in June during the 12-day bombing by Israel and the demolition of Hezbollah and Syria. So let's hope the best also for Iran, that Iran is able to recover. But the prospects seem dim, economically speaking. And so we can expect some big change in Iran also over the next 1 or 2 months. Thank you so much. Keep subscribed to my channel, and I'll keep bringing you insights. Thank you.
One of the things that is happening, and I think you see it all the time, Howard, you've seen it, that Cuba is ready to fall.
Yes.
Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Marco Rubio.